Top of the agenda, so Collingwood's state of civil war. The current board has stood united and defiant in the face of the demand from Jeff Brown for a peaceful surrender and a transition of power. The statement came late today and it was a forceful one, Robbo, the highlights of which read, the board of the Collingwood Football Club stands as one. It stands united and strong. The board of the Collingwood Football Club stands for unity, not division, and will therefore stand against coups driven by personal ambition. Not one, let alone four of the current board is prepared to step aside to allow a boardroom coup as proposed by Jeff Brown to proceed. A coup is not warranted, it has not been justified and cannot be justified, nor is it in step with good governance or the will of members to agree to the demands of an individual member wanting only to be president. In any case, there is no vision, no ticket, no compelling strategy for you to consider or for us to step aside for. How could any board entertain a request to step aside without first knowing these things? Notwithstanding this position, we are available to meet Jeff to establish whether, in the best interests of the club, a divisive and distracting campaign can be avoided. So it wasn't quite General Anthony McAuliffe who responded to the German ultimatum with simply nuts, but it was one man's declaration of, I want to be president. Well, so what?
Yeah, about time, to be honest, about time. When I read that press release this afternoon, I thought, and I've described this before, Gerard, and I think you've agreed with me, the current board and Mark Corder, I think their PR, they've been slaughtered by the media coverage of the coup running group run by Jeff Brown. So to see Mark Corder, it's really interesting. People who know Mark Corder, and I don't know him at all, people who know Mark Corder have told me that they've been really surprised by his response because they reckon he's a really tough businessman. And when you listen or read that open letter to members in the Herald Sun, well, I thought was wishy-washy, and I've heard him with you and Neil Mitchell. I thought he was really passive. And this was always going to require to go into a bit of DEFCON 3. Maybe not DEFCON 1 just yet, but you've got to go into DEFCON 3, and I've seen that today. OK, we're going to go to an EGM. I don't think Jeff Brown's going to stand down, and I don't think now that Mark Corder and his group are going to stand down. So from the distance of having no sides, well done for starting to show a little bit of fight.
So it puts the onus back on Brown, who just wanted to say what he said in the Herald Sun and let that stand. His intention was to smoke out the board. I'm coming, I'll win, hand it over. That's clearly now not going to happen. So the force of one man, he now has to make the case. Now, the biggest reaction this morning was from Collingwood members who'd signed the EGM who said, hey, we want to vote. We signed the EGM because we want to vote. We don't want a handover. Put your best case forward. So does Brown have a 7-person ticket? Does it have diversity? Does it have gender balance? Does it have vision?
You don't know yet. All we know, he just wanted a 4 seats on the board.
He just wanted to smoke them out.
4 seats, give us 4 seats.
So now we've got it should be a competition of ideas. Put your view forward for the future of this footy club and then let the constituents vote on it. I've been consistent on that for months.
Yeah, it's a great point. And central to the vision will be the coach, Nathan Buckley. Will Buckley become a campaign item? Will one of the groups come out and say, we're going to re-sign Buckley or we're not going to re-sign Buckley? Or Jeff Brown comes out and says, we are going to get a new coach or we're going to re-sign Buckley? That's a major pawn in this.
But it would be wretchedly unfair if Buckley was used by Collingwood, given his service to the club like that. Both boards and both men should say, no, that is the domain of the football department where Graham Wright is to run a review and present a recommendation, and we will abide by the recommendation which comes.
Okay.
So we will back whatever the instructive decision is. We will support that.
Would you support Mark Corder, as he said today, they're the incumbent board, if basically he said if we're going to make a decision on the coach at the second half of the footy season, they can announce that. I think they should. They are the board. They've got to make the decisions that a board is required to do. Now, if Jeff Brown doesn't want Nathan Buckley, he's going to have to act before round 14, round 15.
So
Somehow.
I think the timelines on this will play against speedy resolution. So I spoke of speedy resolution last night. If we go down the path of an EGM, and that's really the only way it could go, there are legal parameters in there, probably around a 21-day discovery period, if you like, to authenticate the signatures, and then a 60-day period to call the EGM after that. If you run the maths on this...
Oh, we're going to the end of the season.
It's
then.
out. It's at the end of the season.
So the current board can make that decision on Buckley at round 16, round 17. One thing I'm really not confused about, Gerard, but listening to your radio station, listening to other radio stations and getting emails myself from Collingwood members, they're absolutely calling BS on Mark Corder, saying this board was voted in by the members. No, there hasn't been any voting at Collingwood for more than a decade.
No, 2 decades. So
2 decades.
Eddie uses it as a boast. We haven't had an election for 22 years. He said it unclassified a few weeks back.
So Mark Corder kept saying, no, this board was voted in. No, it wasn't voted in.
Ratified through the AGM process, which has been
Exactly.
mastered by all clubs. Collingwood is not...
No, I know that. They handpicked their board members, but they're not voted in.
Where there needs to be an election.
There will be.
Put up your best and let the people decide. This is Mark Corder on 3AW just a short time ago.
Just remind everybody, the president is appointed by the board. What we're saying is, if you want to become the president of Collingwood Football Club, then there's a process to go through. I think Jeff said that 4 of the members should stand down so he can become president. The board's very strong on this. Not one board member will be standing down, let alone 4.
So this is going to play out from here.
Yeah.
A political fight like we haven't seen in footy for many a year.
No. And a lot of people might not care. There's a lot of Collingwood people who absolutely care.
Oh, it matters a lot.